Hey guys,
Hey.
you know, I don't think a lot of people's onto this. I really do not think a lot of people's onto this. Think about what's happening all the way around the world. Okay, consider something for a moment. I just put up a video about the depopulation agenda. Have a good listen to it. Okay, it's only 20 minutes. It's a new video that only went up 2 weeks ago. I'm going to bring something to your attention that no one's going to be ready for. And I don't think anyone's going to be ready for this. Nimrod, known as Gilgamesh from Babylon, he was known as the one who rebelled. The first person to put in a world order, a world organization, governments, and to be competitive. And I have to say this, you can go and read the Bible about this, to be competitive, right? To start a competitive generation for power and money, right? To start kingdoms and own his own kingdom. He started the first kingdom, right? Okay, the kingdom of power, greed, temptation, and to be competitive. To be in competition, to conquer and divide, right? And allow money, greed, and power to be your temptation. That's what we warn about in the Bible, you know. Nimrod's known by many different names. And I want you to consider something, right? If you go into history about this and read this very carefully. Okay, Osiris got a lady pregnant known as Madonna and the Sun, right? I think it's Madonna. She said Osiris was Nimrod and Gilgamesh resurrected. That's why he's known by many different names. So Nimrod went searching for the meaning of life, okay? And he went to a tree. He spoke to a tree. And a tree that was dead and had dead roots started to regrow. This tree was a symbol of Nimrod resurrecting and being born again, right? Reborn, right, into another person with another name. You used to go there and worship that tree after. There's something we're missing, okay? And people are completely oblivious to this. Nimrod used a magic potion. A magic potion that's been used for our human history. It's called an electromagnetic device. It means it's a conductor. The magic potion is what we refer to as methamphetamine today. It was first made with graphene oxide gold. And today it's made with iodine graphene oxide. Today it's made with hydroxide gel and registered by DARPA and Biotech in the experiment. It's also called the drug delivery system. It's registered by the FDA, the food industry, and every single company pushing it as a device, an electronic magnetic device. On every patent, and you can read the patents, I've disclosed that video and put that up on my timeline. The drug delivery system of graphene oxide, iodine graphene oxide that comes from iodine crystal, it's an all methamphetamine, ADHD medication, many happy pills, Lyrica, okay? It's in vitamin C, D, B12, zinc, iron, magnesium, and it's also in water. And when you talk to a plate of water, it has a personality. I've given you details. If you talk to 2 plates of water and talk very ugly to one and beautiful to the other, put them in the freezer overnight, pull them out the next day, you'll see one's in corruption, coercion, illusion, it looks ugly. The other one looks beautiful. If you go to Unifed and get a DNA test done, in 2 seconds you'll realize under a microscope that your body cells, you're 75% water. And your body cells look like the plate you talk ugly to. And we have many defective genes because we're in the wrong mindset in 5 sensitive negative fields with a high IQ, and that's to be competitive. So we're stripped from our biological genes and we create these molecules of 2 molecules in metallic and graphene oxides from the back of our pineal gland from 0 to 7, then between 7 and 15 it dies. That means we can't conduct anymore to the positive energy, positive power, which is our 6th sense to think instinctively, to think outside the mind. That's how positive feels. But when we think with the mind all the time with the IQ and comes to that conclusion with reasoning, it's negative fields. And it doesn't matter how you look at it. It is how it is. Those who think instinctively will tune out the program. Those that master mind and don't let the master them will also tune out the program. They're called the gnostic masterminds. They can master minds so the mind don't master them. They have an outside influence in their reality with sevenfold wisdom and knowledge because they have 7 times more positive power and energy with their 6th sense, not using their 5 senses. You know, gnostic mastermind is the only person in the whole world that knows these tools and recreates the molecules that you can't create because they die between 7 and 15. Proven fact all over the world. That's why you're going through a death experience and you don't know who you are. Why you're here and what the meaning of life is, because you can't think instinctively. And that's what the problem is today. And if you don't believe me, sit back and listen to this. Everyone's psychological and thinks with their psychological behavior, their 5 senses with a high IQ, 95 to 99% of the time. I think instinctively 99% of the time. Big difference between you and I. Okay, and I can use 100% of my mind because my mind's not being oppressed and suppressed with a high IQ where you only use 9%. And that's reverse psychology. And you use that all the time and come to a conclusion with reasoning because it's designed that way. For 300 years in reverse psychology through all your education, go and read your documents. Those that tune out of the program uses their instincts with an outside influence in a heartbeat with adrenaline, where they can respond 7 times faster without thinking, without programming, without books, without education, without a high IQ. We are the masterminds of the world recorded in their documents. And a mastermind knows what a mastermind is because he knows how to use his progenitor genes and go back into his history, right, when he was here before, right, and he knows his history. So that's why this is important. Some people here is going to break free from amnesia and open up to think outside the mind and discover who they are, why they're human, what the meaning of life is, and go all the way back through their progenitor genes in their ancestry tools and start using their abilities coded in their DNA for 6,000 years. Ismail Perez is out there talking about progenitor genes and they're about to resurrect Zeus and Enlil. So pay attention. Look at what's happening today with gene editing, CRISPR. DNA editing, MR technology, they said they found the tools of immortality. 20 years ago, they made goats and got into production to make goat's milk to make spiderweb. Spiderweb, the most strongest material in the world, had to do mass production. They did a DNA editing on a goat and a spider, so it produces spider milk for that material. That's been in production for 20 years. Denmark's created clones for all pork and kills 50 million pork and grows 50 million porks a year without any farming. One of the biggest pork producers all over the world. They've been doing cloning and hybrids for 25 years, so they can fully grow them within 3 months, and they don't have the right light, power and energy, and therefore there's no negative fields in them. They have a different outside influence in their reality, and every hybrid and clone is created with graphene oxide gold to conduct from an outside influence into their reality to bring them to life. But they don't live very long when they're created this way. But here's the facts. They've been doing gene editing and all these things with hybrids and clones for the last 80 years. Using mRNA technology, first reached at bioweapon in 1895. That's how they created the kamikaze, the super soldiers. They will take their own life to take yours. Hitler created MBK, methylbenzoketone, and put his armies on this. And then Britain and America did the same thing to keep up with them. They're still using that product today, and most people in the whole world have been brought up in our technology and have an outside influence in their reality, right, from different frequencies, with a voice in their mind when they design reverse psychology, and that voice controls them. It's an alien invasion through frequencies, through modern technology and gadgets that everyone's attached to so much. Nimrod created Tower of Babel to conduct into different parallel worlds and different entities, different dimensions. So when you think of reverse psychology and you conduct, you have an outside influence in your reality. Okay, from lower dimensions, there are 200 frequencies, and that's what we call other spirits, that are the fallen angels, that conducts with all these things, right? And that's how they run the whole sophisticated security system. And that's what you have to understand about life that no one's going to be prepared for. While you're being entertained with everything else going on in the world, what you're not observing is the hybrids here all over the world that's already been created. So consider this. If we talk about Nimrod, who was then resurrected into Osiris, right? Because that's what his wife says, right? Okay, his missus, right? The mother of the son the all-seeing eye of Horus, that he resurrected into Osiris, reincarnated. They were not reincarnation in a reincarnation trap. There are 45 books missing from the Bible. 45 very crucial books that gives all the details about how to use your superhuman abilities with 7 frequencies of the chakra. Those frequencies are very important because when we use them, we live to be 1,000 years old and can repair our genes, DNA, and immune system by thinking outside the mind and being in tap with ourselves with the right frequencies, with the 8 frequencies of righteousness, to be in harmony with them. And your chakra works all 7 chakras, right? To repair your DNA, your genes, your cellular, in your body, the water, in the most positive frequencies. And that's 75% of your body that works together. You know, the chakra is a gut feeling survival mode that triggers the very preservation mode for life with those molecules to conduct with the shiver in your spine where your body cells fires up and you can feel them fire up and you can feel everything through the atmosphere and a whole different perception because you feel things and you don't think about things with your instincts, right? So you think instinctively. So you have a gut feeling survival mode to feel things with the shiver in your spine. So you're alert, alive, awake, and aware with a methaphet, which is the adrenochrome, which is the Christ oil that conducts you, right? The third eye to feel things with an outside influence in your reality. And most people don't understand this concept whatsoever because they're in the wrong mindset and they're controlled by the mind and they can only use novice in the mind with a high IQ and they can't think outside the mind. And that's the problem today. Because when you go into our history, I want you to consider something. There's a whole group of bloodlines, like Jesus talks about a bloodline that he comes from. Jacob, Abraham, Moses, right? All the way back to Enoch, right? Enoch is the grandfather of Noah, okay? And Enoch was raptured into the future, who was indigenous, to bring Jesus up to be perfect for 17 years of his life so he could use his superhuman abilities and he could break free from amnesia and discover who he was. Then he took 12 disciples. And in a cycle of life of 7 years, he broke them free from amnesia so they could do what he can and more. And he resurrected, and so did they. And that's one of the most important things hidden in the Bible. You see, everything is about dying and rising and resurrecting, right? And understanding who you are and not being stuck in a reincarnation trap. You know, when Jesus looks at his mum, Mary, Mary can't recognize him because he's another person. Do you know that? Do you actually know that? If you read the Bible correctly, right? They don't know it's Jesus because he doesn't look like Jesus. He looks like another man, but he's resurrected into another person. And people are oblivious to this. Read the Bible, right? Because it's not Jesus that come back. He resurrected in someone else in a reincarnation trap. He wasn't stuck in a reincarnation trap. He knew he was, and he proved it, and he made that point very obvious. So the same story goes with Nimrod, Gilgamesh, Osiris, the all-seeing eye of Horus. If you follow the list, you see how he went from the pharaohs, right, into the Persians and the Greeks to build their civilizations and into the Roman days. His name keeps on changing. So he's been here resurrecting non-stop with the Freemasons and all these people that knows what the meaning of life is and how to resurrect. They are the 33-degree Freemasons, uses the 33-degree steps on the ladder, which is Jacob's ladder. It's the shiver in your spine, gut feeling survival mode, with a methaphet to be alert, alive, awake, and aware with those abilities. Take this, right? When you follow the bloodlines up, you realize who this person is. Because when you keep following this bloodline, the person who created Law and Order documents 300 years ago with a case document this thick, that same book is the one Bill Gates holds in his hand as a book of statistics revised. When you look at the tools he uses, they're the same tools as Nimrod. All the way back through his bloodline, they're exactly the same tools, and he knows his progenitor genes. At the age of 24 years old, he registered Microsoft in 1975 at the age of 19 years old. At the age of 24 years old, in 1980, he was on the world stage media on every single TV across the planet. They said to him, Bill, how did you think of this? You never went to school. You didn't go to university. You couldn't read and write. You were illiterate. His answer was, whatever I can't think of, I hire the person that can. Fast, sufficient answer, and he was the most powerful and the richest man in the world by 24 in 2 days. This man's been completely exempt from any criminal conviction. He's been up in courts many times for monopolisation. When we were supposed to be flourishing by 220, and we were so heavily flourished with money that no one would have to work any more than 20 hours a week by 220, and no one would ever suffer ever again. They monopolised everything ever since and made them the rich, the elite, the cabal, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call them. They manipulated the whole thing, monopolising everything. And you can see that in the court cases as 10 officers took over, and the 10 officers are sitting at Geneva with Garvey at the top. Worldbank.org is Biz. And the CEO is Klaus Schwab for WF, the World Economical Forum. And the architect's Harari, okay, for 20 years, born in Israel. He says we have the divine power, creation, destruction. They built the CERN machine and took all the money. $37 trillion from 160 countries. All the surplus. That's what broke the banks in 2008. And you can follow the banking record and you can see it. It costs $37 trillion and they tell you it costs 8 billion euros. That's a lie. It's a massive lie. Okay, the book of statistics is how to manipulate the whole population, and it's his favourite book. He has immunity to everything. Right, the most powerful man on earth that sits at the UN like he owns his own country with offshore accounts. He pays $750 tax a year so that when he donates money, it's 100% tax deductible and he gets it all back. And you give him praise for this. He's got complete immunity for everything. He owns every single thing going on in this world today, no matter how you look at it. Right? He controls every 9 yards and doesn't have any diplomacies whatsoever, no paperwork, no scientist, no nothing. But what is he? He's the smartest man in the world. That's what he is. And if you look at the tools that he uses, and you understand what's going on in this world, you might understand something. He's behind everything to do with DNA editing and every single thing to do with mRNA technology, everything to do with frequencies with the quantum computer, and the quantum computer sits with NASA, CIA and NSA in Pine Gap Area 51, Australia. He controls the quantum computer, and what do they say? The CEO from there, they're going to create their own God. What does Harari says and Klaus Schwab says? We're going to create great gods. We have the divine power, creation, destruction. And we're going to do what Hitler tried to create. What did Hitler try to create? Hitler tried to create one gene, one pool of genes, and that was only their civilization. And to depopulate everybody else, right? And take over the whole world. And that's what they're doing today, right? And who do you think is in charge of this? Well, you don't seem to know the bloodlines, do you? And you don't seem to understand who's who here around here. But let me tell you something. When you have the 10 kings and the 10 officers sitting at Garvey, Geneva Convention, right? At Davos, right? And you have the CERN machine with Sheba at the front, the God of creation and destruction, built right in the poles where poles is, the God of creation and destruction. And you hear these things come out of their mouth. And then Obama calls Harari the great prophet, which we're warned about in the Bible, born from Israel, right? And he's going to stage everything for the Antichrist. Who is the Antichrist? Who do you think it is? Because it's Baal, it's Gilgamesh, and it's also resurrecting, right? So you've got to understand something. If you follow the bloodline and you understand what's going on today and why they got Gilgamesh out of Iraq in 2003 and the 4-pillar resurrection machine and the Stargate system, and they took everything out of every single museum in Iraq, okay? It's on Hillary Clinton's email that she ordered to take all this out, right? And who does she really work for? Huh? Who do you think runs the military and the quantum computer and NSA? Who do you really think controls the whole military? Who do you think it always was? The same person, man. Babylon, Nimrod, Gilgamesh, right? Whatever name you want to call him, right? But we understand the tools he uses and the book of statistics and every single thing they follow is from Babylon, right? And that's the time we're in, right? And that's complicated. But let me tell you something. NASA, NSA, they've been doing DNA editing and creating super soldiers with mRNA technology. And what does Ismail Perez tells you and many other people on the social media platform? They're going to create great gods in hybrids. And they're about to unleash new hybrids. They're going to be like X-Men, like the super Marvel heroes, right? That's what they're telling you all over the world. And people believe us to it. But at the same time, they know that some of us are going to do it too. They know some of us has the same abilities, right? And that's what the interesting part is, because this is the harvest. This is the great gods resurrecting into hybrids. And that's what's happening with super soldiers. And some of these are half robots, half animal, half human. Go and look in Google. They've been doing animal and human hybrids since 2011. It's not a secret. It never was. Okay, DNA manipulation, the great gods, the return of the gods through hybrids and progenic genes. And resurrecting, because they're reincarnated, and everybody else in the world is stuck in a reincarnation trap because they don't know who they are, why they're here with them in life is. That's why they designed reverse psychology, so they don't know who they are. But those who think instinctively tune out of the program, and they will discover who they are when they go back to the image they were created in. The way we were created 5,000 years ago, and this is the biggest disclosure in 5,000 years. You see, we're going back to our progenitor genes and going back to the image we're created in to do what Jesus can and more. And only a handful of people can do that. It goes back to their primal state. But you have to resurrect and go back to your primal state and the image you're created in. You have to be reborn and break out of amnesia to discover who you are. And most people are not interested. They're not in God's image. They're in their forefather's image, which is Baal and all the fallen angels of 200 fathers here. 200 fallen angels, right? 200 frequencies. That's a coincidence. 200 voices in the mind. Okay? 200 voices in the mind coming through people's minds, controlling every mind in the world. They follow their father's footsteps. It doesn't matter what they're saying, what comes out of their mouth. Their action speaks their own words. And that's what's so dramatic around here. Those that live by the wine yodel equally, those that understand the kingdom as your church and live by two similar commandments, to love one another and bear his burdens, understands that being a loving, compassionate creature comes with the 8 tools of righteousness: loyalty, honor, respect, moral morals, inspiration, and encouragement. Those that live by it are in God's image. Those that go back to their primal state, when their principalities in the right place, they'll have the power of reconstructing their DNA and bringing back their progenitor genes and discovering all the abilities that they have to restructure their DNA and become that person in that image that God created. Right now, there's progenitor genes opening up all over the world with super soldiers, robots, and half human. And that's what they're resurrecting into, something very powerful. And believe me, you might understand why people like Bill Gates and these people, they're not afraid of their flesh. They have the tools to resurrect. They have the immortality tools to resurrect and reincarnate into a hybrid with very powerful power. They don't care about their flesh. They care about their power, right? And that principality and power you were warned about, right? There's going to be a lot of principality and power in the air that's going to deceive you. An outside influence in your reality. And right now, there are 2 parallel worlds here, 2 different dimensions exposed, not only in the looking glass, but in the UFO disclosure. They tell you, we're just beginning to learn about different parallel worlds and different dimensions. Dolores Cannon, or Dolores, what's her name? Dolores Cannon. Dolores Cannon. She warned us about this. Many people's warned about this. I've warned you about this, 2 different dimensions. The looking glass tells you about timeline 212 and timeline 227, 2 different timelines, 1 and 2. So right now the shaman is showing us, and you felt the darkness come over the planet in 220, something very dark, and the light's becoming more powerful, and we can see that in the shaman, the frequency's changing, the magnetic shift changing, and people's decisions and attitude changing. The magnetic device is activated to one of these 2 influences. One out of these 2 influences. Those who think instinctively will be in the positive light and power. Those who think psychologically or avoids everything and lives in a bubble in their own comfort zone or believe in their own truth with a high IQ are the ones in the opposite. In negative fields, when you think too much with a high IQ and come to your own conclusion with reasoning in some sort of comfort zone, right? They have no courage, they have no spine, they've got no gut feeling, they've got no chakra, and they don't know how to use it, right? They think they do, but it takes more than 7 years to get off the grid to discover this, to break free from amnesia. And nobody's interested in doing that. They all think they know better. Well, believe me, right now is going to be the most interesting time in human history where you're going to see things unfold that you weren't even prepared for. Because most people do not believe in the truth and don't realize that these magic potions are from the days of Nimrod. They're a conductor, they're a device, they're an electronic device. Electronic magnetic device, okay? And you can see that by DARPA, biotech, the food industry, FDA, and every single company imposing this. It's registered in that many products you have no idea, and you're consuming it every day of your life without even realizing it. See, it's not about the conduction. It's not about what you do. It's not about what you consume. No weapon formed against you can prosper. You know why? Because those who think instinctively will conduct to the most positive power and outside influence in their reality. Those that go psychological will be controlled by the system. That's the mark of the beast, boys. Believe it or not, it's a mindset you live in. It's all in the skull. Whatever mindset and whatever thoughts you feed, it's the one that controls you. Whatever entertain you the most, whatever you consume the most, whatever you entertain on social media platforms the most, it's the one that controls you. Those who think instinctively will tune out the program and go back to nature to fend for themselves and stand on their own 2 feet. In the kingdom is your church. The vineyard rule, to live equally, and 2 simple commandments. They're the ones that's going to find their abilities like a Sasquatch. Far more powerful than anything you understand. Bear that in mind, because a Sasquatch thinks instinctively and has got incredible superhuman abilities. You have the same thing. It's coded in your DNA. The biggest secret kept in the world. Okay? You can communicate with a Sasquatch with your 6th sense. You didn't know that. They don't tell you that. They just keep away from the Western civilization because they know they're white man crazy, white man God's crazy. But you can't do the things the Sasquatch can. Okay? All you care about is this world and all the materialistic things that are controlling you. That's what you love so much, and that's what's got you by the balls, because you can't fend for yourself. You want to blame everything else around you because you can't wipe your own ass. You can't even stay in your own sovereignty. You know, a real man doesn't care about the system at all. Doesn't care about radio frequencies, doesn't care about nothing in this world, because he stands on his own 2 feet, in his own sovereignty. And no weapon formed against you can prosper, and if you will let it. You give consent. I don't give consent to nothing. You do, because you depend on it. You can't stand on your own 2 feet, you can't fend for yourself, you can't think instinctively, and you can't repair your DNA and your immune system, but we show you that. We show you every single tool to use, how to do that, how to break free from amnesia and discover who you are. And it's not hard. It's really easy. But you've got to have the want. You've got to have the thirst. You've got to want to know who you are, and you've got to want to know what it's like to be in that image and to be saved. Yes. To be saved and know that you're saved and not have any fear or control, any mechanism control you ever again. To be saved, to be free, and have that liberation in a time where time stands still and life pursues and everything is perfect. No more pain, no more stress, no more fear. Are you there yet? Because we are. We're loving it, man. We're loving it. And we can't wait to see what's happening. It's going to be mind-boggling. But you can feel it. You can feel everything changing in this world. The positive and negative's getting a lot stronger, isn't it? Well, you better get in the right mindset so you can conduct correctly. And you've got to create a relationship, man. There's no shortcuts about that. You need to be one with the Father, and the Father being you. So create that relationship, man. And remember, Jesus is your only Savior.
Love you all.